Welcome back to the new and improved Hockey Show. Now today, as you can see, if you're a past viewer, that I have a bigger and better whiteboard. It's all clean and pristine, straight from Wally World. And I've got it here with me today. And we got 9 games to preview for October 17th. So let's jump into it with the first game of the day alphabetically, because it's actually other start at the same time, is the Ducks of Anaheim versus the Rangers of the great city of New York. So the Ducks going into this one are 1-1, and the Rangers are 2-1 going in. So both teams... The Rangers are a playoff team. The Ducks kind of aren't there yet. I don't really think they're a tank team. I don't think I think the Ducks would like a high draft pick, but they definitely don't want I guess they would want the number 1, but they're not trying to tank. For me, I actually kind of thought the Ducks would be better than what they're doing, but they're not doing very good, actually. They're a -5 right now, and 12 players are on the team. Out of the 18 skaters that they dress, 12 players have 0 points. And I know it's only 2 games into the season, but at this point, some of the names on that list are kind of not who you'd want to have 0 points. So right now, not very good. So in the two games that they've played now, they beat Seattle 4-5, but then the New York Islanders squashed them 7-1, which is strange because the Islanders aren't even a team that are really meant to be scoring a ton of goals. So if all the teams had to happen, not really the team you want that to happen against. So obviously, they're allowing a lot of goals against each game. Even when they beat Seattle, they've beat them 5-4, and the Islanders 7-1. So they've let in 11 goals in 2 games, and not good at all. So the Ducks really, it's kind of hard to talk about it for a team like the Ducks who don't really have any aspirations. They have their young guys coming up. They need to add some more pieces to really be a winning team. So they don't really care, like, what they do, right? They have their guys developing and growing. So for the Ducks, I don't really know what their goals for the season are. Like, of course, the players want to win, but what does the organization want? And to be honest, I don't really know. I guess maybe they view this as a win. Maybe if they finish, like, as a 500 team, maybe they squeak into the playoffs, or maybe they're, like, a top 10 lottery pick team for the draft. So I don't really know. Maybe they're succeeding the organization's goal, or maybe the players keep pushing. But they got a tough team in the Rangers to play against. So right now, the Rangers going into it, they are a +5 goal differential. They beat Minnesota 7-3 last game. So they're 2-1. And the Rangers, they just got to keep pushing, right? Their one loss was against the Winnipeg Jets, 4-1. That was their last game, actually, after a back-to-back. So the Rangers, if I got to give my prediction, the Rangers are going to win this one. The Ducks, obviously, they're getting scored a ton against, and they have a powerhouse offensive team like the Rangers. Going into this one, there's no chance I don't see the Ducks winning this one. So the Rangers are going to take this one away. There's really no notes to talk about here because the Rangers are going to win. So moving on to the Coyotes versus the Maple Leafs. So, of course, the Coyotes are 0-2. The Maple Leafs are 2-1. Now, the Coyotes, they're trying to lose, right? This team has been built to be absolutely miserable, and so far they're doing so good. So, Gosh Despair, though, leads the team with 3 points. So, for the Coyotes, the players still want to win. Gosh Despair still playing his great season from last year, or I guess his redemption season for a defenseman. 53 points for a defenseman on the Coyotes is not too shabby, and he's continuing leading the points with 3. And right now, the Coyotes, they've had 6 goals against them for each of the games they've played now. So the Maple Leafs going into this one, obviously we know who they are, what they stand for. They got their 4 core guys on offense there. So, Coyotes they're trying to lose. This team is trying to lose, and the Maple Leafs, I plan on seeing that happen. However, the Maple Leafs going in 2-1, that one is from losing to the Canadiens the first game of the season. So, maybe that's another thing. Maybe the Maple Leafs just are going to lose to the teams that are trying to be the worst. So, that's maybe a case. But also, goaltending. Who's going to start? Against the Coyotes, do they start the guy Kalgren? I think his name was Kalgren for Matt Murray's replacement. Do they put in Samsonov? Or, I mean, another question is Nick Robertson too. He had a great preseason. He's been a highly regarded player. You keep hearing about him on the Maple Leafs the last couple of years. So, do they start him in the game? I would if I was in charge. So for this one, I mean, it'd be hard to choose. You know what? Screw it. The Coyotes win this one because the Maple Leafs aren't going to beat them. So, and Matthews will end up there in 2 years. So we move on to the Florida Panthers against the Boston Bruins. Now for the Panthers, they're both of these teams 2-0, so I really want to see this one. One of these teams, they're undefeated. One of them's going to not be defeated. Is going to be defeated by the end of this one. So for the Panthers, though, this is their real first challenge of the season. They're 2-0, and they play against the Islanders, and they played against Buffalo. So two teams that kind of are playoff hopefuls. I mean, the Islanders are like, I don't have them as a playoff team. The Sabres, who knows, they could do something. I mean, they have the players to do it. It's just a matter if they can finally start winning games. So they take on two teams that they definitely should squash, and they have. So they're 2-0. This is their real first challenge. And for the Bruins, they're playing without Marchand. They're playing without McAvoy and Grishalik. So their top two defensemen, I guess, depending if you can't Hampus Lindholm, and also I would say their most dangerous forward piece in Brad Marchand. And they're still getting the job done. Everyone is playing well. David Krejci, Bergeron, all of the guys that are in this lineup are playing good. And not to mention their great goaltending tandem back there. Swayman is amazing still. So this is a real battle between two teams that have their hopes high, especially the Florida Panthers after their season last year, and the Bruins. I mean, this is going to be a real clash of the Titans here, and it'll be interesting to see because I would say this is kind of a real test for Florida. They're a team that's really trying to redeem themselves from their last year's playoff fail. So, do they play against a team like the Bruins missing three of their top pieces of this team and lose, or do they beat them and are they still in contention? I feel like this is a real benchmark test, I guess, if you can say, for the Panthers. And for the Bruins, if they lose, they can just say, well, we're missing our top guy. So, yeah, it kind of goes either way. For me, I think the Panthers are going to win, but I think they're going to have a comeback victory. I think they're going to look bad. They're not going to look good by the end of it. They're going to win, but they should have won, like, by a lot more. It's going to be like a hard-fought victory where it's like, well, you won, but you should have destroyed. So I think it's going to be a bad win for the Florida Panthers. Moving on to the Penguins versus the Montreal Canadiens. So, Penguins going in undefeated right now so far in two. So, they're 2-0, and they've won both the games they've won. They won 6-2 against the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Arizona Coyotes. So, kind of two odds of the spectrum. You got the back-to-back champs and the three-time finalist champs, and the Coyotes, who haven't done anything in a long time. So they kind of have wins against two odd ends of the spectrum's teams. And right now the Canadiens are in that odd end of the spectrum where the Coyotes are, where they're not a winning team. So the Penguins, can they just keep winning games? For this one, I got to think they're going to pull out the victory. And for the Canadiens here, 1-2, they're going into it. They have 3 goals against every game, which is strange. 3 goals against every game, and they're 1-2. You'd think if you let 3 goals in for every game, you could be winning more, but I don't know. Anyways, but my biggest question is, where is Slavkovsky? I know it's a big thing right now that he hasn't done anything as the first overall pick, and for me, I thought he'd be a shoo-in for the Calder or, I don't know, anything, but he has done absolutely nothing, and I know it's only 3 games, and he's getting used to the NHL style. He plays in Europe. It's a different ice surface entirely. And where is he? So between this one, I think this isn't the type of game the Canadiens are going to pull out a victory, and I think the Penguins are going to keep steamrolling and surprising me that they're going to stay undefeated. So moving on to the Capitals versus Vancouver. So 2 teams with 2 losses. 0-2 is the Vancouver Canucks, and 1-2 is the Capitals. So for the Canucks, right now they have it. I was like wondering, well, what's wrong with this team? Because their losses aren't really that bad. Against the Oilers, 3-5, they were winning that game until McDavid decided to change everything. And against, oh God, who was the other team? The other team, it was only like it wasn't that big of a, it was like 3-2 against the other one as well. So for the Canucks here, I was like, why are they losing? And right now they have, I think, the worst or close to the worst terrible power play and penalty kill. So they're not getting any good on special teams. And also, just their heavy hitters aren't showing up, really. In those 2 games, and I know, it's only 2 games, beginning of the season. But at this point, you want to see a couple of guys kind of taking the reins, have at least like 3 points. But they're big guys, Miller, Bo Horvat, Besser's out, Pedersen, just any of them, Peterson, I'm sorry. All these guys, they're just not really, they're showing up, they have points in 2, but they're just not getting the job done, and especially the whole team as a whole. It's just no one's really taking charge of any of the games so far. There's no heroes. They're just kind of sitting back and like just letting the game play, and no one's really taking the brass ring there. So, and for the Capitals, the biggest problem with them right now is that Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Karlsson. Ovechkin has 1 assist and no goals. Kuznetsov, I think, has 0 points, and Karlsson also has 0 points, or has 1 assist. So, really, for the same thing goes for the Capitals here. They don't have any of their heavy hitters going, especially Ovechkin. He's trying to break those records. He's got 0 goals in 3, and I know it's only 3 games, whatever. They're missing Backstrom. They're missing a lot of their key pieces, so they're really retooling here. So, I get it, but still, they got to show up if they want to win these games. I wouldn't be surprised if Ovechkin lights the lamp against Vancouver. Seems like the type of team he dominate against. So for this, I think the Capitals come out with a win and tie up their record, and Vancouver's just going to keep falling off, even though they really shouldn't. Moving on to a game between 2 teams that I have a lot of hope for. So the Kings, who've turned me around completely, and now I'm a fan, surprisingly, against the Red Wings. So the Kings right now 1-2. They're 1-2, and they currently, their biggest problem is that they have a 4.67 goals against average in their game so far. So they're letting in a lot of goals, which is not very good for them. Their 1 win is from playing Minnesota, and it was 7-6. So even when they won a game against a team that's having a terrible time playing defense, who I'll get to after this game matchup here, and they can score goals as well. They're scoring, but they just can't keep the puck out of their own net as well. So, which is strange because you would think that wouldn't be the problem. So, with their Quick and Peterson back there. So, just kind of an odd stat there for the Kings. They just got to keep the puck out of the net. And then we go to a team like the Red Wings that just seem to be, I called it. I said they were going to be huge, and they're playing huge right now, especially with that line of theirs, when Rasmussen, Sundqvist, and Soderblom. So the Red Wings 2-0 right now. They have wins over Montreal and New Jersey. So really, they haven't had a tough matchup. I mean, New Jersey's okay, and the Canadiens are doing at least something a little bit, kind of. But right now, they don't really have wins over anyone big. And the Kings, I would say, would be probably their hardest matchup so far. The Kings seem to be that really fight-hard victory, and I think the Red Wings have that in them as well. So for them, this is going to be a hard-fought matchup, I think. These are going to be 2 teams really fighting each other. They got a lot of young guys on the team. And then speaking of the young guys is Moritz Seider. He hasn't gotten a point in 2 games yet, which I know. He's a defenseman, whatever. It's only 2 games, but when is he going to show up? So, between them, I think the Kings are actually going to pull out the win. I think the Kings, after their victory over Minnesota, some of those guys are going to still have some juice in them to score some more goals, and I think they're going to pull out a victory. So I think they're going to tie up their record and hand the Red Wings their first loss of the season. And then we move on to the Champs versus the Wild. So a team... So Landeskog is a question. I think I heard that might be out for a really long time or not. I don't know. So Landeskog is kind of iffy, but the Avalanche right now 1-1 into this one. So, excuse me. So Avalanche 1-1. So right now, the thing about the Avs is that their whole thing was that they had a lot. Their whole team was so built last year, but right now, 7 forwards and 3 defensemen have 0 points right now, and I know. 2 games in the season, I know. But the same thing, it's still a concern, especially with a team that the Stanley Cup champions. they're not getting that overall play. They're getting, I don't want to say lucky, but guys like Nichushkin and McKinnon and Rantanen are really pulling the load here. And especially with Landeskog missing as well, those guys like Alex Newhook especially, like these guys are supposed to be growing and competing, just aren't there. And I mean, and Arturi Lehkonen as well, he's playing well as well. So, and right now, goaltending is also kind of not being the best. Both of them are in the 800s in save percentage. So Georgiev and Francois just not really getting the job done, which was kind of a concern going into this one. And then and speaking of goaltending problems, the Minnesota Wild, Marc-Andre Fleury, of course, we all know it at this point. They've let in 7 goals in both of their games so far. Matt Zuccarello said that they play defense like a junior team, and really he's not wrong. Only 4 players out of the 18 don't have a minus plus minus, so don't have a negative number. All the team except 4 players have a minus, so that ain't very good for a team like the Wild, which is surprising. Because I think most people, including me, thought with Fleury in net, and especially with their defensive lineup, that this would be a really hard to score against team. But I think what's happened is it's a psychological thing. I think maybe what's going on is that with Fleury in net, and that this team was supposed to be good defensively, that it would come naturally. So instead of really like focusing on that, they thought it would be just like, oh, whatever, we already got that done. We got to play more offense. So it's like screwing them up, you know what I mean? It's like I think it's a psychological problem. So, which is, I mean, that's just my call. But between these two, I think Minnesota at home with Landeskog out, it just feels like this type of matchup the Wild are going to win. And I think it's going to be weird. I think it's going to be like a 8-7 win. I think the Minnesota Wild are going to score 8 goals and beat the Avalanche, but they're still going to let in 7. This is going to be a crazy one. I'm calling it. It's going to be a high-scoring game regardless. At least, I would say at least 6 goals in total are scored, at least, if not more. So, Wild are going to get their first win of the season, but it'll be a crazy one. Now we have Winnipeg against Dallas. Now, Winnipeg, I don't have anything really to say. They beat New York 4-1. They've only played 1 game of the season. Like, there's nothing really to say. Like, Scheifele got a couple goals, and Ehlers has 2 assists. Like, there's nothing really to say. So, the Jets trying to stay undefeated here against an also undefeated team in the Stars. However, the Stars also have only played 1 team, which is Nashville, twice, and they beat them 4 and 5-1. So they're not letting in any goals really, and they're scoring a lot against another team who I have as a really good team. So, I mean, I guess really good for them. It's kind of hard to make a call on this because one team, they both only played 1 team really. So between them, I like the Stars more, so I'll say the Stars are going to win 4-1. So, Stars win. And then our final matchup of the day, the Canes versus the Seattle Kraken. So, the Hurricanes, which I know my red marker is running out, so I had to write Canes. They're going into this one still undefeated 2-0. However, they have 1 goal against each game so far. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. However, 6 out of their 6 defensemen are back there, with Slavin, with Burns, with I know all of their team, but I can't think of it right now. All of that good defense back there. They only got 2 points. Not very good. And offensively, they're only winning games like 3-1 and 3-1 and 2-1 against the Sharks. So that's a cause for concern for me. This is supposed to be an all-around superstar Stanley Cup potential team, and they're having a tough time playing against even the Sharks of all teams. So I'd like to see this team generate more offense, especially with all of their heavy hitters all around. I would like to see that happen, but so far they're undefeated, so what do I know? And then the Kraken, the only team with a 1 overtime loss on this whole board. They're 1-1-1, and right now their goaltending is just terrible, and I think that's the biggest factor. Martin Jones and Grubauer. I said Grubauer was a fraud. I never believed in him. I've said it forever since he was on the Avalanche. I said it's a fraud. He was just looking good because he's on the Avs. He's getting lucky, and with Martin Jones, I like the risk. I like the idea of Martin Jones putting it back there with a chip on his shoulder as well. But, Goaltending is not good right now for the Seattle Kraken, and it's just kind of confusing with them. I got to be honest. This team, their first game of the season is against it was the Knights? No, it was the Ducks. The Ducks, sorry. It was 4-5. 4-5 in overtime. So they lose their first game of the season in overtime to the Ducks. And then they go on and they beat the LA Kings, I think 4-1. And then they lose 5-2 against the Golden Knights. So it's just like they go back and forth of just how they play to me. So they're just kind of confusing me right now. I don't really know how to call them. It's like I could say they played well against one team, they lost barely to another, and then against a true good team in the Knights, they lost 5-2. So the Kraken is just kind of confusing to me, and between these two, I just don't see the Kraken having the ability to put down the Hurricanes so far. So I think the Hurricanes are going to win this one. I'll say 4-1. 4-1, I think, is a good number for that. So that is their little bit of a preview for tonight's games with my new whiteboard. I'm very proud of it, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. So I guess if you liked this video, please pick up your free subscription by hitting that red subscribe button. If you liked it, leave a like, not a dislike, or go down below to the comments and tell me how stupid I am for saying the certain things that I've said. Tell me, how stupid am I for thinking some things on this board? So tell me all that down below, and until next time, I've been your Hawaiianly dressed shirt, Owen, host Owen, too sweet. I hope you're having an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.